Elizabeth Warren is going to be talking about taxes. There's never been a dollar she didn't want to tax. Never a billionaire she didn't want to destroy, unless it's Taylor Swift. There's no money out there that the government should not instead have to spend on things that she decides are important and not things that she thinks are not important.
Taylor Swift's Eras Tour was the highest grossing concert tour of all time, making over $2 billion. Wow. Now, does that seem like a lot of money to you? Oh, it is, but not compared to the tax handout that Donald Trump gave to Jeff Bezos and Amazon last year.
When I saw this, I was intrigued. I was like, what, did Amazon get this big handout last year that I don't know about? Did the government cut them a check? I don't want them to take money out of the treasury and give it to these businesses to do anything. And it turns out she's comparing the money that Taylor Swift justly made on her tour, of people paying free market prices to go see her on her tour.
Really expensive, by the way.
Which she's decided is fine. She's okay with Taylor Swift charging whatever she wants to charge for tickets.
I think the average ticket price was $1,500.
Yeah, people freely paying that and her making a bunch of money off of it. And that's totally fine when it has to do with music, any kind of entertainment, anything like that. But of course, if you're like operating a business where you sell goods and services to people, then that's an issue, and that those prices need to be regulated. And the people who make a lot of money from that are terrible and evil. But no, the point of this is they didn't just get cut a check or anything. It's simply going to be a reduction in the taxes that they might have otherwise owed had the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act expired and we went back to pre-Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And since they were going to pay $9 billion in taxes, and instead they paid $1 billion in taxes, then that means the government and Trump gave them $8 billion. Do you guys understand how insane and ridiculous that is?
Can I add a side note?
You can add anything you want.
I think you should pat yourself on the back, Mr. Thurston, for probably single-handedly, I'm going to take a wild guess here, that you single-handedly ushered in the era of which Taylor Swift paid out millions of dollars of bonuses to all of her staff and employees that were on this tour. And that's because you created a insanely viral Facebook meme a long time ago, comparing the pay and bonuses that Taylor Swift gives out to her employees being an even greater difference than the CEO pay to the average worker pay, which got a lot of Swifties upset. The post went super viral, millions and millions of views. I think Taylor saw it. Somebody in her camp saw it, because since then,
and not before then,
but since that moment, Taylor Swift has been paying even her truck drivers hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of bonuses ever since that viral meme that Mr. Thurston created. That was just phenomenal. It got the Swifties going. They were really upset.
You might not know this, but it has been a long-term goal of mine to be able to control Taylor Swift. And so I do feel pretty accomplished.
Yeah.
All right, back to Elizabeth Warren's ridiculous video.
You're such a man.
Take a quick look at the numbers. Starting off, the amount of money Donald Trump and the Republicans gave to Jeff Bezos and Amazon as a tax break is right around here. And how much the Eras Tour made is right around here.
First off, this doesn't even make any sense, because she's comparing how much in total a tour made versus what someone, say, paid less in taxes than they otherwise would have. She's not going to put on the graph how much money Amazon made, or how much money they spent, or how many jobs they provided, which is like over 1 million jobs to people, or how many customers they have, or anything like that. She's wanting to emotionally trigger like a bunch of, I don't know, people our age and younger thinking about Taylor Swift or whoever her fans are. And just show them how
unfair it is.
Like, yeah, she made a lot of money, but look how much money Trump gave Amazon.
Trump gave Amazon 4 times as much in tax breaks in 1 year than the entire Eras Tour made. And there are a lot of big numbers right below that, too. This is roughly Kim Kardashian's entire net worth. Right around here is how much LeBron James made over his 23-season career. Wow. And here is how much the typical American...
Do you hear how she talks so differently about these people? Do you hear like any hatred or disdain
No.
in the tone of her voice?
She loves them.
When she's talking about Taylor Swift bringing in the $2 billion, or Kim Kardashian and her net worth, or all the money that LeBron James made, do you hear any hatred in her voice? Do you hear anything in her voice that tells you that she wants to try and control these people and stop them from getting this much money?
Of course not.
It's wild.
Household makes in any given year. Yeah, you can't even see the line here. Put another way, it would take the average household about 100,000 years to make as much money as Donald Trump gave to Amazon last year. So you might be thinking, whoa, how did Amazon get such a sweet deal? And the answer is simple. Donald Trump took money that we as a country give to lower healthcare costs, and instead he handed it over to giant corporations.
What?
That's how Amazon is now paying.
She acts as if, like, the way she frames it in your head, you're like imagining Trump reaching into the money cookie jar that was set aside
To lower healthcare
to
costs.
lower healthcare costs for you. Poor little you. He only makes $80K compared to all these people. This money was already in this jar set aside for you. And Trump decided to just take it straight out of that cookie jar.
The obvious fact here is that the government is not just owed all of the money and they just get to decide how much you get to keep. Like, this is money that you create and earn through your products and services, from your customers, through your creative endeavors, all of that. And they like to think that they just own all of it. Like, they have rightful ownership of all of it and whatever it is
It's like
that you
feudalism.
get to keep. Yeah.
It's like you produce this in the kingdom, therefore it all belongs to the kingdom, and we get to decide how much you keep.
It literally is. And you have to believe that to hear this argument and think that they were given money, because they still are going to be paying over $1 billion in taxes to the government. The only thing that changed is that they're paying less money than they would have. And the reason that they're paying less money than they would have, she's not going to go into all of that. She's going to make you think that somehow the corporate tax rate was reduced by 87%, essentially. That's not what it was. They're doing this 100% bonus depreciation and expensing for your R&D expenses as well. And that's a good thing. And so when you go out and you do capital expenditures, you can count that against your taxable income. And you should be able to. Normally, you're not. Normally, you depreciate that like a certain percentage as those assets that you bought depreciate in value over time. It's a good idea to allow people to deduct that from their taxable income, because it creates more growth. It creates more investment. Just imagine, like, Charlie, let's say that you knew you were going to owe like $1 million in taxes this year. Or you could, like, you're going to have to pay them $1 million. Okay. Or you could go out and increase your business's assets, do a capital expenditure of $1 million, which is going to be great. You're going to use that. You're going to create more stuff. You're going to create more jobs with that. You're going to do so many great things with that. So, like, would you rather give the money to the government so they can set half of it on fire, pocket 30%,
Send it to
and
Israel.
send the rest of it to other countries, and then waste the rest of it after that? That's one thing. Or you could actually increase the value and the output of your business by spending that on some kind of capital good.
Oh, that's tough, man.
That's a tough decision, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know what I would
It's a
do.
really, really, really tough decision. And so that's clearly what you would want people to do, because they're going to know better what to do with that $1 million than the government's going to know what to do with that $1 million. And so I'm happy with that. I'm totally fine with that.
Or billion.
However many billion
Yeah.
it is. I think that's
Now, did she
overall.
talk about how much taxes Taylor Swift and all them pay, or
Probably not.
This
You know
is-
what? And you know what? I bet.
what did she use them for?
I bet you.
in her chart.
I bet you Taylor Swift, she does a tour, she's going to write off every single possible thing she can. She's going to take every single bonus depreciation she can. She's going to take every write-off she possible. I bet all those extra bonus checks she wrote out to all of those people on the tour, all that stuff, she's going to be taken off of her taxable income and paying less in taxes than she would have otherwise. And Warren's not going to say a word about it, because somehow they literally have this idea that, like, well, Taylor Swift earned her money. That's what's in their brains to dictate
and somehow
the way that
Amazon and SpaceX and stuff didn't.
Yeah. I mean, that's really what you have to believe is that, well, she earned that money, you know? That is the only thing that could explain why they talk about those people in such a different way. People will talk about how much money CEOs make. Oh, CEO of Walmart made $22 million last year. I've never see those same people posting about Dak Prescott making $60 million that year at all. Never see anyone posting about that, you know?
Here's what I really want to know, and I think someone needs to leak this, okay? I need to know whether or not Elizabeth Warren has an Amazon Prime account. My guess is that she does, but we need to know for sure.
We do.
And if she does, we need to take it from her.
Mm-hmm.
I think Amazon should say, we no longer want to serve Elizabeth Warren. We won't deliver any packages to her house. Order from somewhere else. That's what I would love to see.
Yeah, let's try and dig into that. Let's see if someone can do some digging on that. One more thing here on Elizabeth Warren before we move on to the good stuff the Trump administration just did. And by the way, this actually is something good the Trump administration did. This is part of the One Big Beautiful Bill. So these are some of the good parts, and I'm totally fine with that. Absolutely fine with all of that. I do want to encourage investment for these companies, and I would rather them find ways to spend this money than to find ways to give the government this money so they can waste all of it. I'm totally fine with that. There's one more thing here. She posted this out yesterday, the day before. She asked if this seems fair to you. $0. That's how much Tesla paid in federal income tax last year. And does that seem fair to you? And the really annoying part about this is there's also a very reasonable, rationable.
It's rational and rationable.
Both of them.
Yes.
You can rationalize this, which makes it rationable.
Amen.
This makes total sense because what you know about Tesla, what we've talked about with Tesla for a long time, is that over almost all of their history as a company, they have lost money, like all the time. And so people have this idea in their head that, well, when you make a bunch of money, you should have to pay taxes on whatever your profits were. But then these kind of people like Elizabeth Warren, they don't seem to account for what about the years where you lose money. So if you owe the government money on the years that you make money, what about the years where you lose money? Do they owe you money is there a percentage refund that you get every year that you lose money? Well, no. So what they do is they have a system where you can take those losses and you can apply them to your earnings, your profits later on, because that in a system that is wildly unfair where we steal money from people without their permission, that's a more fair way to do it. It's the most rational explanation for this. Like,
look, to Costco's point in the Fed Haters Club, which you can join by going to joingml.com, is he says it is fair.
Yeah,
I want everyone to pay zero in taxes,
which was my comment on this. Like, that is fair. The unfair part is that I had to pay taxes. It's not unfair that they didn't pay taxes. It's unfair that I did, and so we need to fix that. Okay, we all need to fix that,
but not in the opposite direction. We don't need to fix it by making other people pay taxes. We
No.
need to fix it by everyone else not having to pay taxes.
No, and we always use a prison analogy for this, but if you're stuck in an unjust prison, a prison that you should not be in for any reason whatsoever, and you look outside, and outside the fence is that guy over there, and you say, it is unfair that I'm in here and he's out there. Let's make this fair. Go out there and grab that guy and bring him into this prison. That's not a solution. That is not a fair solution.
What's so interesting about human nature is people will think that
They'll
that's
settle.
fair.
They'll settle for that.
Yeah.
As long as that guy gets put in the prison too, then we have made everything right and just.
Misery loves company, and there's a reason that they want that saying.
So you should
You
absolutely
see it with little kids, like if one kid gets in trouble, it's like, well, he should get in trouble too.
Yeah. You should absolutely be able to carry forward these losses against your future earnings. That is the only thing that makes any sense in this scenario where you got a bunch of profits this year, but you lost money all the years before that, and they didn't give you a credit every single year before that. Of course, you get to count those past losses against your future
By the way,
earnings.
for you to sustain those losses, lots of people have to be at risk.
Mm-hmm.
because that capital has been expended in hopes that they're going to get a lot more in the future. But if they don't, then that money's just gone. You don't get, it's not like you get a refund from the government. It's like, oh man, I put 50 million at risk and it's all gone. And we were hoping to get, $1 billion out of it, but that didn't happen. So can I get my 50 million back, government?
Let me get that back.
No, they don't do that. But this idea that anytime you do make a little bit, that you can't count any of your losses that you expended and you're going to have to go ahead and pay tax on it. It's like, it's basically taxing money that doesn't exist, because really, even though you made a profit, let's say you made 10 million this year, but last year you lost 20 million. There's still no money that exists. 20 minus,
you're still down.
20 minus 10 is negative 10. You're still,
let me check the math on that.
You're still, I'm sorry, negative 20. Negative 20 minus 10 is still negative 10.
Negative 20 plus 10 is still negative 10 is
exactly.
what you're trying to say.
You
right
do the
now.
math, okay?
Yeah. Okay. To the main topic. President Trump and Administrator Lee Zeldin deliver single largest deregulatory action in U.S. history. Now, I like Lee Zeldin. He was clearly a good pick for EPA administrator because his focus has been, how are we going to make it so the EPA does less things? That's a good person to put in control. So Trump admin eliminates Obama-era endangerment finding. But first, I'm going to tell you why this could be important for you. There's a lot of aspects to your vehicle right now that you're giving that cost more money. By the way, they cost more money to fix as well.
Have you seen the price of cars these days?
It's ridiculous. I'm never getting a new car.
The hell is going on?
I'm just not going to do it. For instance, like my car.
How does anybody afford? What's happening?
I was surprised to find out that my car, my Honda Accord, has a turbocharger in it. I was like, that's weird. Like when I was in high school, getting a car with a turbocharger in it, that meant you were getting some kind of freaking race car, But these days, a lot of cars have turbochargers in them so they can get away with having 4 cylinders. And so they can have, a little bit better fuel efficiency. A problem with a turbocharger, if something goes wrong with it, as is common on the model year of my Honda Accord, super expensive to fix. $3,000-$4,000 to fix that turbocharger, which did go bad in my car, kind of. Luckily, I found one YouTube video that said, hey, before you go pay a few grand to get your turbocharger replaced, try tightening this screw. Basically,
and it worked.
Is what it said. And it worked. Everything's been fine since then. Most people would have gone and paid a few $1,000s to get that fixed. The auto start stop function on your car. Don't you all love it? You people with new cars, when you stop at a stop sign and your freaking car turns off.
Oh, I hate that.
God.
That is the worst.
I've never met a person that likes that.
Brittany likes it. It's in her Jeep, and I turn it off every time I get in there.
I can't do it.
But the auto turns on every time. You have to hit the button every time.
Well, we're getting rid of that.
I'm going to find that wire.
That's going to go away. I can't stand it because I don't know about you guys, but for everything that I purchase, and then including myself as well, I know that there's a certain number of times that thing is going to work. I do it for everything. I do it for this laptop. I've had a laptop where the screen wore out and got really loose, moving it up and down. And so in my mind, I go, there's a certain amount of times I can close this screen and open this screen before this starts to feel a little bit loose and just doesn't feel quite as good anymore. There's a certain amount of times I can use this USB-C plug-in before it burns out, like this one over here burned out from being plugged in all the time. There's a certain amount of times my car can turn off and on before something goes wrong, before the starter goes wrong, before the battery goes out, something like that. It drives me insane when the car is turning off and on. I'm like, there's a certain amount of times my heart is going to beat before it blows up, So I'm going to try and stay calm and keep my heart rate down so I can extend out that certain amount of times,
Tough in this business.
Yeah, it's very tough. Pick the wrong gig, And
I hate when God, last time we were driving Brittany's Jeep and it just stopped at a stop sign. It just shut off. I'm like, this is the most annoying thing that's ever existed. Thank God for Zeldin.
We got gasoline direct injection, and we got advanced transmissions. And we got like 8 to 10 speeds instead of the typical like 4 to 6 speeds. So that's something. And by the way, all of this which all of these things are more expensive to fix. It's not that they go out a ton, but when they talk about cost for people, even when the EPA shows you how much cost savings this could be for people, they're not even taking into account the maintenance expenses for fixing these things. They only take into account the extra cost they've added to buying a new vehicle. They haven't even taken into account the maintenance for the cars and fixing these items when they give you the number on how much money this is going to save people. This whole apparatus from the time before these regulations went into effect to now has changed the real world miles per gallon, not what's on the label on the car, which is like perfect, flat, straight conditions. But real world, let's take the minimum, 20 miles per gallon in 2008 to 25 miles per gallon now. That's the minimum range. It goes, 20 to 22 or 25 to 28. So we'll just take the low end of both of those. And that's what we've gained from this.
22.5%.
Yeah. It's an increase. That's a 5 over 20 increase. That's a 25%.
Yeah,
25% increase right there. So they're saying this is gonna save $1.3 trillion for people. Barack Obama says today the Trump administration repealed the Endangerment Finding, the ruling that served as the basis for limits on tailpipe emissions and power plant rules. Without it, we'll be less safe, less healthy, and less able to fight climate change. All so the fossil fuel industry can make even more money. And that's why we're doing this. And, to be honest, there could be that could be part of the reason why they're doing this. I mean, Trump's got friends in this industry. I don't really care in this scenario. It equals less regulation. So cool. I'm fine with that.
He's got friends in fossil places.
Yes. Before we get into this ruling, this rule that they're putting out here, don't worry. People are going to be taken in the court over this. Yes, they are going to take the EPA to court to force it to regulate something. You would think you get taken to court because people don't like that you're regulating the businesses. But yes, we also have a world where you'll get taken to court if you don't regulate something. That's the kind of bureaucracy that we've built here, is that you get in trouble for not regulating something, even if you're the person running the agency and the person who runs the executive branch says you're not going to regulate that thing. You can get in trouble for that. That's awesome. And then I'm also going to tell you guys about how, regardless of this, the emissions are still projected to keep falling, even though they're getting rid of this whole endangerment finding thing. And actually, it didn't really change much as far as the emissions went. So just so you guys know.
But just so you know, we're all going to die still.
Yeah, we're all going to die because of climate change because of this. This action, this is according to the EPA, this action will result in over $1.3 trillion in savings from 2027 to 2055. Sorry. So that's 28 years. It's $46 billion a year. That's what that comes out to. Check the math on that. That's savings. Okay, that's fine. Like I said, it doesn't take into account the extra maintenance costs and stuff if things go wrong with your vehicle. That is purely in reducing costs for new vehicles and savings from avoided costs of purchasing electric vehicles, which people got upset about when they said, well, these extra costs of buying electric vehicles, there are many studies that show over time electric vehicles are actually much cheaper for you. I went into those studies. They don't take into account how much more an electric vehicle is for insurance, which is like $300 a month or more for insurance for an EV. That's a car payment in my book, because I have 2018 car payment. It's stuck in my head. They're much more expensive on insurance, but they don't take that into account. Imagine not taking that into account when you're looking at how much would
it's mandated, by the way.
Like, how much would it cost a person to have an internal combustion engine vehicle versus having an electric vehicle? And you take into account how much it costs to buy it and to fuel it or keep it going and maintenance costs and all that. And you're like, oh, well, yeah, it looks like the EV might actually be cheaper. How are you going to not add in the mandated expense of auto insurance, which is much higher for the EV? That's just ridiculous, man. Let me tell you what.
Which in my realm, considering I pay about $100 a month in auto insurance, that's a $200 a month difference.
That's a pretty big deal.
That's $2,400 a year.
Yeah. I think Lacey and I together pay something like $120 a month for 2 vehicles. So yeah, I can't imagine paying $300 for insurance for one vehicle. That's wild. From the American Enterprise Institute, this guy did a nice little write-up on it, trying to make sense of this whole thing. So it's important to understand a few of these things because this is going to go to court. And people are going to try to force the Trump administration and force the EPA to regulate people.
Well, of course.
Which is just still wild to me.
Yeah, because they have finances at stake.
Like, we have set up a regulatory apparatus. We have set up a bureaucracy where it, in fact, becomes illegal for them to not regulate things.
What's interesting
That's
is
not right.
What Trump repealed, or what the EPA repealed, was its own finding. By the way, its own 2009 directive that establishes certain things as affecting climate change.
Yeah. So
now basically that set up the entire administrative legal framework for which the EPA used to enforce all of these additional regulations.
And not just on vehicles, on power plants too.
Yes,
like
all kinds of
this
stuff.
whole thing, what you saw happen with coal plants and all this stuff, like this stems from 2009 Endangerment Finding, which, by the way, does come from a Supreme Court decision, Massachusetts versus EPA in 2007, which ruled that greenhouse gases qualify as air pollutants under the Clean Air Act. And so if you go to the Clean Air Act, by the way, it does say the administrator shall, by regulation, it says shall, it says they have to do this in the Clean Air Act, by regulation prescribe and from time to time revise. Super specific. Don't you love it when they're so specific as time to time?
You can stop
revise.
Reading. You can stop reading right there.
I think we just revised it.
And from time to time revise.
There we go.
Change the headline. Trump administration's EPA revises because it's time to time. They reviewed it.
In accordance with the provisions of this section, standards applicable to the emission of any air pollutant from any class or classes of new motor vehicles or new motor vehicle engines, which in his judgment cause or contribute to air pollution, which may reasonably be anticipated to endanger public health or welfare. And that is the line that really matters right there. May reasonably, so air pollution, which may reasonably be anticipated to endanger public health or welfare. And so after the Supreme Court decision where they decided that greenhouse gases are air pollutants, they basically said to the EPA, well, you guys have to determine, you guys got to figure out, are these greenhouse gases air pollution which may reasonably be anticipated to endanger public health or welfare? And so they came out with what we know as the endangerment finding, that it does in fact endanger public health or welfare. Now, the wild thing is they're using this for a bunch of course, climate science, which is a lot of nonsense, some things that are possibly true, some things that could turn out to be true over a course of a few hundred years. But they're deciding that it's important enough to add these costs on top of the American people. And imagine, this is like we're over here just punching ourselves while other parts of the world are just like, screw it, we're just going to grow as fast as we possibly can, you know? And we're over here deciding that we're going to hurt ourselves to try and fix global climate change. Because remember, that is a global phenomenon. There's nothing like, it's not like the climate, it's like running around the world here, going back and forth between the North Pole and South Pole.
Whacking people over the head.
Just going back, and it's like, it's America. They've been doing some pretty good stuff last few years. We need to probably not bother them for a minute. No, it's a global thing. So then you got to look at, is anything that we're doing going to change what's happening? And the answer is no. The answer is no.
Or do humans at all have an effect?
And that is still like up for debate. You know, it's still very much up for the debate. So the whole thing is wild. The Trump administration has done the right thing here, and they're going to the Chevron deference case, which was just happened right before Trump took office, actually. And they said This is from that case. The scope of an agency's own power is determined not by deference to asserted expertise, like at the agency, but by the best reading of the statute, which is fixed at the time of the enactment of the statute. So like the Clean Air Act. Is this what they intended? And if they didn't, or if we don't know, then you know who should clarify that? Congress. Congress should go clarify that.
It says it right in the statute, from time to time revised.
It does say that.
It seems like it gives them the legal precedence to, or the statutorial framework in which they could revise at any time. From time to time.
This piece from the American Enterprise Institute does show, like, this is an interesting chart here. The top one, if you're watching, says real world CO2 emissions. And then the bottom one says real world fuel economy, miles per gallon. Now, there is one thing I wanted to point out, though, on this chart. The bottom, where the trend started to move up, is actually in 2004. And these regulations didn't actually kick into effect until 2012, model year vehicles. This is very typical with regulations, with the bureaucracy in general. You could look at a chart like workplace safety and look at OSHA, and they can take credit for things. And then you say, well, actually, workplace, deaths on the job or injuries on the job have been declining for years before that. In fact, if you didn't tell me, I couldn't tell you when OSHA was created based on this chart at all. And what you actually find here is you might say, well, clearly they started regulating this in 2004. That's what this chart would tell me. And no, that's not the case. The actual regulations kicked into effect in 2012. And we got about the same change from 2012 to now as we got from 2004 to 2012 in fuel economy.
What was all the regulations happening from 75 to 60 to 87?
Those regulations were high fuel prices. And so people were, no, there were regulations, but what you'll find is as gas gets more expensive.
That was the sharpest decline I've seen.
As oil prices are going up, things like that, what you're going to find is car companies have a natural incentive to provide people with vehicles that are cheaper for the owner to operate. Whether or not the government's telling them to do that, they've got an incentive to do that because your car is cheaper for that owner to operate, and that's something that they're going to take into account.
Then what's funny is you see a decline as oil gets cheaper. There's a decline in fuel efficiency because people they didn't care that much about filling up their car. They wanted power.
Yep, just had to go.
Just had, give me that power you got. I don't care how much gas it guzzles.
So the EPA argues that
run a 4x4.
The regulation of automobile emissions is not allowed under the Clean Air Act because the harm from those emissions is far too small to endanger public health or welfare. And then they showed some numbers, and the numbers essentially show you that these perfect emission standards that we have, and everyone follows along and everything goes great, result in a nearly immeasurable amount of change for the things that you guys are saying affect public health.
Like it's so close to zero, it's zero.
But there is a measurable amount of cost that we are imposing on the economy by doing this. And we have like 0.000 number worth of change in measurement to the thing that you're wanting to fix by doing it.
So basically they're saying it ain't worth it.
If you're doing a cost-benefit analysis.
The CBA don't float.
No.
Is what they're saying. It sinks. And you don't like things that sink.
Since we got about 5 minutes, I'm going to move to, yes, Congress should actually fix this. That if there's too much ambiguity in the law, if they want to decide exactly what the EPA should be doing here, then all they got to do is go back and amend it. I can't talk today. Yeah. I don't know what's going on. But they don't.
Thomas Massey will block it.
But they don't want to. Like they don't want to do that. They'd rather write this thing like could be taken either way. We don't really know. Let's just push it off to the EPA, and then we can be mad at who's running the EPA.
We named it the Clean Air Act.
So you got to have clean air because of this. That's what's going to happen. And of course, environmentalists are saying we will see them in court. This is from Inside Climate News.
I can't think of a happier time for an environmental lawyer.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to
This is
make
great.
bank off this.
I think the environmental lawyers were pushing Trump to do this. That's who's making money off of this thing. We will see them in court, said Marvin Brown, senior attorney at Earth Justice. How are you going to get justice for Earth? I don't know. This is an affront.
Justice.
This is an affront to not only our public health, but also an affront to our future and to basic science and basic scientific principles. Sierra Club's Andres Restrepo, senior attorney for the organization's environmental law program, said the EPA's move was an attempt at an end run around the Supreme Court's decision from almost 20 years ago. Restrepo said the Sierra Club intended to challenge the repeal in court. And everyone else says they're going to challenge this in court too. This one from the Environmental Defense Fund had a couple dumb things in it. This action will only lead to more of this pollution, and that will lead to higher costs and real harms for American families. The evidence and the lived experiences of so many Americans tell us that our health will suffer, property values will decline, flood and fire insurance premiums will increase. So this is coming from people who are on the side of all the wildfires and all the hurricanes and all the tornadoes and all the floods and all the droughts too.
By the way, that they say have been getting worse, even though we've enacted all this change for the last 20
That's where
years.
you think it would have stopped by now.
You think it would be getting better. And they paint this apocalyptic picture and they say, if they're still available, if this insurance is still available for you.
And what they don't want to tell you is, like, if you use a state like California, they're not going to tell you about the things that California has done to make that insurance insanely expensive and unavailable to you, by setting price caps on these people and other regulations as well. So they're not going to show you those kind of things. And at the end, they say, this is the last thing American families need when electric bills have never been so expensive, which is a hilarious
Why are they so expensive right now?
Yeah. Like,
we've been under the EPA's direction.
This is the last. Why are the electric bills so expensive? Why?
Yeah.
I don't know. Have we been getting rid of all of the cheapest ways to provide electricity to people? Have we either been getting rid of them or imposing new costs on them because of this endangerment finding since this time? And you're going to sit here and say, we don't need to do this because electric bills are already so there's nothing about this that would make electric bills go up. Why would it make it go up? They would only make it go down. Come on now.
It's insane.
Come on, man.
Trying to flip it. I like what Michael said in the Fed Haters Club, joingmail.com. He said, the high priest of climate change are telling us how the gods will be angered. We're going to anger the weather gods, the climate gods.
But then, just so you know, this is from Axios, says after years of regulatory whiplash, the finding itself has directly reduced little, if any, emissions since 2009. Because it's just not like vehicle emissions are, I think, 25% of the emissions in the U.S., but you're still like you're only reducing a percentage of the vehicle emissions, which are 25% of the emissions. And then these regulations, they go in, they go out, they get delayed, they go through court. It's not a good way to do it. If anything, you should want Congress to do it. I don't want Congress to do it, but that's what they should want to happen. But if you're super worried about the climate, don't worry. It's still going to go down. Greenhouse gas emissions are still going to go down. In fact, now this chart's funny because it starts at 2006. And so it's just showing, obviously, this downtrend happening. And this right here is where these regulations kicked in. What I would like to see is way before this, where the thing keeps going up and it shows that we were in the downtrend way prior to these regulations kicking in, but whatever. It's still going to keep going down. Around the time the regulations came in, we were putting out something like 5.7 million metric tons. That's what this chart says. And let's see, we're projected to go down to, with no rollback of the regulation, we're projected to go down to 4. And instead, now it's going to be 4.5. And so it's still going to go down. Still going to happen. It hardly changed in the first place. And everything's going to be fine. This is not the biggest problem that we have to worry about. In fact, the economy being destroyed, the economy being ruined for people, and going down that path is a much, much bigger problem that we'd have to deal with in the near future, or even not even near future, but 20 years, 30 years. By the way, they just revised down the year that Social Security is going to run out of money. When we did our Social Security talk, it was 2033 or 34. Now it's down to 32, which means a little bit more time goes on. Gap's going to keep closing. I think we got about till next year. There are big problems that we have to deal with right now, and imposing extra costs on Americans for something that may or may not be a problem, based on scientists who did or did not have an incentive to produce this scientific literature, because that's what the grants were paying for, and the grants weren't going to pay for anything else unless it was backing up climate change. It's not worth it. It's just not.
I mean, that's Trump's whole point, Nate. Why are we focused on Epstein? We got big problems.
And this, by the way, this is why you should want Congress to take care of things, and you shouldn't just trust these agencies to take care of everything for you, even if you're on the left and you accidentally tuned in to this last 10 seconds. Don't just trust that the agencies are going to do this thing and then you live in your perfect world, because then the wrong guy could get in office, like what you would consider Trump to be, and he could totally reverse things. So you should make sure a plan is popular enough that the people's representatives can vote it into office, and then I'll still be against it then. But that's what you should be pushing for. Let's go.
It's look, the whole thing's a mess, man.
It's a mess.
And what can regular people do?
About which part? Well,
let's just say the whole thing.
The whole thing?
Like, look, we believe in ushering in liberty, and this is a good thing that Trump's doing, but Trump's also doing a bunch of bad stuff. And how do we convince the left to stop going down this crazy road? And how do we convince the right that, Trump's doing some good things, but there's some bad things that he's doing, and we need to focus more on liberty?
What the right needs to do is to continue being vocal and speaking out about things that they said they cared about. They need to figure out, what do they actually care about? Do they actually want the government to be smaller? Do they actually want to get rid of some of these regulatory agencies? Do they want spending to go down? Do they want to close the deficit? Those kind of things. And they need to stand by those things, whether or not their guy has decided those things are not problems.
That's really boring. Tell me what the Dow's at before we close. Because I
think it's at 50,000.
Everything you're saying is boring. Pull up the Dow before we close out the show. And then I think that's all that matters.
Yeah. It did get kind of boring there for a minute.
What you
Let me
said,
see.
all that right there was I was just bored.
What is that, DJI probably? Oh, 49,713.
Put it on the screen for YouTube.
Oh, yeah. Let me just put it full
make sure
screen.
They can see that
right here.
Now we're getting close back to 50, so that's that's something important to pay attention to.
Yeah, so it's almost so for right now, we do need to talk about these things. We're close. We're close to all this stuff not mattering.
49,717. Yeah. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. That's much more important.
Yeah, it's
I'm glad we ended the show on something important for folks to think about. So Dow's almost back at 50. Nothing else matters.
Yeah.
Just move along. And I think that's what the God of Trump intends for us.
The most important thing for all these people to remember is that any power you ever give the government is someday going to be controlled by someone that you don't like. That's for people on the left and for people on the right. If they will ultimately remember that at all times, whatever power you give an agency or the office of the president, whatever power that is, you are giving that power to someone that you don't like. Obama had powers that people were fine with Bush having, so on and so forth. And now Trump is exercising powers that people were fine with Obama or Biden having. And if each one of these sides of the aisle would remember that and keep that in their hearts and not allow everything else to cloud their judgment all the time, to let that one, it's not even really a principle. That's just a fact of life. There will be someone that you disagree with, and they will have the option to exercise this power. Are you okay with that? No. So we should question whether or not that power should exist. And once you get to that point, well, then we all need to be pushing for that power to no longer exist. And that's what the right needs to be doing, and that's what the left needs to be doing too. If Trump should be a great example for people on the left that you don't want the government having all this power. vice versa with Biden and whoever else on the left is going to get into power someday. Safest thing is to take away the government's funding and to take away these agencies that they use to control our lives and to increase the expenses on all the goods and services that we use every day. These are things that affect us every single day. And that's what everyone has to remember. And that like kind of guiding fact needs to be there at all times when people are making decisions on these things.
That's words of wisdom.
Thank you.
Appreciate that, Nate.
Preach.
And the Dow's close to 50.
Yep.
That's what I have to say.
Yep.
So, all right, y'all. If you enjoyed today's episode, share it around with a friend, a family member, or foe. Leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe, hit the bell, leave us a comment on there, and interact with us. We appreciate you doing that. Visit the links in the show notes to support the sponsors that support this show. If you want any goodies that sponsor on this show, that would be appreciative as well. And we do appreciate you all listening and giving us the time of day for these ideas, because they're important. And keep doing that, and we'll keep coming back. Until then, I hope you have a good day and a good morning, Liberty.